Thanksgiving was already in full swing by the time I pulled up to the country house. The sun was dipping behind the oaks, throwing long shadows across the gravel driveway, and the air had that crisp, brittle edge that only Texas late fall manages to conjure. I sat in the car for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, watching the house glow from within, golden lights in the windows, smoke trailing from the chimney, and a chorus of muffled laughter that sounded too perfect. Too rehearsed. I wasn't supposed to be there. My return flight from Seattle was booked for Friday. Everyone thought I was staying through the weekend for work, a conference that didn't exist. I'd canceled it last minute. Something had felt off for a while now. Calls from Savannah that felt more like check-ins than conversations, quick to end, her laugh a little too tight. A shift in her tone that I couldn't quite pin down. Nothing concrete, just that gnawing, silent alarm that something wasn't right. So, I came home early. No heads up. No warning. I wanted to see it all for myself. As I got out of the car and grabbed my overnight bag from the trunk, I could already hear the music, old country songs my dad always insisted on playing during the holidays. The porch creaked under my boots, and before I even knocked, I heard my mom's voice through the screen door. "Yo, grab the pies. The oven's full." Then, Savannah's laugh cut through, bright, charming, too loud. My hand hesitated on the doorknob. Something about her tone. Like she was trying too hard to sound happy. I stepped inside. The warmth hit me immediately. The smell of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and fresh bread. Jenny's kids ran past me down the hallway, chasing each other with napkins tied like capes around their necks. My dad was in the kitchen with his usual apron on, carving a ham like he was on a cooking show, oblivious. It all looked so familiar, like the kind of memory you want to freeze. Except it felt wrong. Like walking into a movie set of your own life. I passed the coat rack, dropped my bag quietly by the door, and kept moving. I could hear voices spilling from the dining room. My mom's, Jenny's, a few friends from college, familiar ones. And then Savannah again, telling a story, her voice wrapped in sugar. And his voice. Martin. I froze. That voice, smooth, deep, with that constant air of confidence, like he always knew something you didn't. I hadn't heard it in years, not since we'd all drifted apart. But there it was, rising above the conversation, casual and at home. Like he belonged there. I felt it before I saw it, the tension rippling through my chest like a wire pulled too tight. I stepped into the room. Savannah was at the head of the table, wearing the green dress I bought her last Christmas. Her makeup was perfect, her posture flawless, like she'd been waiting to be admired. Her eyes landed on me, and in a split second, the color drained from her face. She dropped her napkin. I watched her throat tighten as she tried to recover. Martin was beside her, leaning back in the chair that was always mine. That's what got me. Not his hand on her chair. Not the way his body tilted toward hers like gravity pulled him that way. No, it was that he was sitting in my seat. The same one I'd sat in every year since Savannah and I got married. The one where I'd carved the turkey, led the toasts, kissed her forehead while she passed the gravy. And there he was, acting like that spot had always been his. The room went dead silent. Forks froze midair. My sister's mouth hung open in a half-smile that hadn't caught up to the moment. My mom's hand gripped the back of a dining chair like she might fall over. And Savannah, she tried to stand, like she could stop it before it happened. But she was too late. I didn't say a word. I didn't shout. I didn't ask for an explanation. I walked straight across the room, every step heavy with the kind of clarity that comes when there's nothing left to salvage. Martin's smirk twitched, just for a second, when he saw me coming. He stood halfway, like maybe he thought we'd hug. Like I'd smile and pretend not to notice everything screaming around me. I hit him before he could speak. One punch, dead center. Years of gym time and pent-up suspicion behind it. His head snapped to the side and he collapsed. No stumble. Just down. A human switch flipped off. His wine glass shattered on the floor, red spilling across the oak like a warning. People screamed. Someone dropped a plate. My father yelled my name. Jenny was holding her youngest, shielding him like a bomb had gone off. Savannah's hand shot to her mouth, trembling. But she didn't run to Martin. That was telling. I stood over him, my fists still clenched, breathing hard. No one moved. Not a soul in the room dared speak. I reached into my coat pocket. The flash drive was small, almost stupidly so, considering what it held. I walked over to the living room, where the TV was already on, playing a muted football game. I unplugged the HDMI cable, slotted in the USB, and tapped the remote. My hands didn't shake. I'd rehearsed this in my head 100 times. The screen flickered. And then came the footage. A grainy view of a bedroom, our bedroom, captured by a small camera I'd hidden behind a book on the shelf 2 weeks ago. The bed. The lamp I hated. Savannah's laugh. Martin's voice. The two of them entering the room, kissing like it was second nature. Like I didn't exist. The room behind me stayed dead silent, only the faint whir of the ceiling fan above us. Savannah stood paralyzed, her face drained of every bit of warmth she'd faked just minutes ago. Her hands were clenched at her sides now, lips trembling but silent. No more stories. No more sugar. The video kept playing. I didn't look away. Neither did anyone else. The room was a vacuum. Not just silent, suffocating. The kind of silence where you can hear the air conditioner hum and the blood rushing in your ears. The kind where no one dares breathe, because breaking it would mean acknowledging what they were seeing. On the screen, Savannah and Martin moved like this wasn't betrayal. Like it was routine. Her laughter, familiar and cruel, filled the room like poison. His hand moved over her waist like he owned it, like I hadn't been the one sharing a life with her for nearly a decade. There was no passion in the video. No urgency. Just comfort. Ease. Like it was something they'd done 100 times before. Like I was the stranger. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to see their faces. I knew what I'd find: shock, maybe disgust. Pity. My mom probably crying. Jenny holding back the urge to throw something. And Savannah, she wasn't crying. I knew that much. I could feel her standing there behind me, frozen, absorbing the full weight of her exposure. She wasn't looking at Martin. She was looking at me, waiting for me to speak, hoping I wouldn't. The video ended. I ejected the flash drive and slipped it back into my pocket like it was just another tool. Another piece of evidence in a trial I didn't want to win. And then I finally turned to face the room. Savannah's eyes were locked on mine, but they were hollow now. Whatever mask she'd worn through dinner had cracked. And underneath wasn't remorse. Not yet. Just panic. She opened her mouth, probably to say my name, but nothing came out. I didn't give her the chance. 6 months? I asked. My voice was calm. Did she flinched? So did Jenny. I took a step forward. That's how long this has been going on, right? Savannah didn't answer. Just looked down, lips pressed tight. You invited him here, I said. To our family's Thanksgiving dinner. You sat him in my chair. My voice cracked on that last part. How long were you going to keep pretending? Still nothing. I laughed, short and humorless. Jesus, Savannah. That's when Martin groaned from the floor. Still out cold, but twitching slightly, like his body was trying to decide if it was safe to wake up yet. My dad stepped forward. Son. No, I snapped, holding up a hand without looking at him. Don't. Not right now. I turned back to her. I want to hear you say it. She finally looked up, eyes glassy. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I tilted my head. What does that even mean? I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. It just happened. It just happened, I repeated. That's your excuse? Her breath hitched. I was lonely. You were always traveling. And Martin was there, Anne. I cut her off. You're blaming me? She shook her head quickly. No, I'm not. I'm trying to explain. You had 1,000 chances to talk to me, I said. 1,000 moments to tell me you weren't happy. And you picked him? Her face twisted. Not in guilt. In defense. It wasn't just about him. Oh, I'm well aware, I said. This is about you. Your choices. Your lies. Jenny stepped forward then, her jaw tight. Savannah, she said, you need to go. Savannah blinked. What? You need to leave, Jenny repeated. You don't get to stay here and pretend everything's okay. My mom looked like she was going to be sick. My dad rubbed a hand down his face like he was aging by the second. The kids had all been sent upstairs, thank God. And Savannah, for the first time, she looked small. She opened her mouth again, but Jenny was already moving toward her. I'll help you pack. Savannah didn't argue. She followed my sister down the hall, moving like someone sleepwalking into traffic. The rest of the evening blurred. I remember people leaving quietly, heads down. I remember someone dragging Martin outside and tossing a cold compress at his face. I remember my dad squeezing my shoulder and not saying a word. But mostly, I remember standing in that same spot by the TV, staring at the blank screen, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Later that night, after most of the house had gone to bed and the air had settled into a heavy stillness, I found myself in the garage, just sitting on the old freezer, staring at the concrete floor. That's where Jenny found me. She handed me a beer and didn't say a word. Just sat next to me in silence. Did you know? I asked quietly. She shook her head. No. But I suspected something wasn't right. I nodded slowly. 6 months. She's been lying for longer than that, Jenny said. You don't fall into something like that overnight. We sat there for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just let it sit. The reality. The betrayal. The fact that the person I'd built my world around had torched it without a second thought. Eventually, Jenny stood. You staying the night? I shook my head. No. I need air. Take care of yourself, she said. And then I was alone again. No flash drives. No audience. No Savannah. Just the taste of blood in my mouth, and a silence that finally made sense. I couldn't stay in that house. Not another second. I grabbed my keys and drove. No destination, no plan, just away. Away from the echo of Savannah's voice in my head. Away from the sound of Martin's body hitting the floor. Away from the looks on everyone's faces, like I just detonated the truth in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner and left them all choking on the fallout. The backroads out past Austin were empty this time of night, just stretches of darkness between the occasional deer sign and flickers of dying porch lights. I didn't know where I was going until I got there. That damn lake. It was the place Savannah and I used to go on weekends when things were still good, before life got too busy, before I started traveling so much, before the silence between us turned into something thick and permanent. We used to bring a thermos of coffee and sit on the dock, legs dangling, talking about things we never followed through on. Dogs we never got. Cities we never moved to. Kids we kept saying we'd try for next year. I parked by the edge of the dirt road and killed the engine. The world fell into quiet. The water looked like glass, black and smooth, not a ripple in sight. I got out, slammed the door harder than I meant to, and walked down to the dock, hands in my coat pockets, the cold air biting at my skin. I sat there for a long time. Hours maybe. I didn't check. Everything in me felt raw, exposed. Like every lie Savannah ever told had peeled back a new layer, leaving me wide open to the cold. I kept trying to trace it all back to a single moment, the first crack. But I couldn't find it. It was like our whole relationship had been leaking slowly and I'd just never seen the flood until it was knee-deep. A car pulled up behind mine. Headlights off. For a second I tensed, some primal part of me still keyed up from earlier, but then I saw the silhouette step out. My brother. He didn't say anything. Just walked up, hands shoved in his hoodie pocket, and sat beside me on the dock like it was the most natural thing in the world. How'd you know I'd be here? I asked after a while. You always come here when your life's on fire. I huffed a breath. Didn't know it was that obvious. He shrugged. You were a teenager. I still remember finding you out here the night you got dumped before prom. That was different, I said. Yeah, he said quietly. This one hits deeper. We sat there, both staring at the lake like it might give us some kind of answer. It didn't. She cheated with Martin, I said in case he hadn't heard. I figured. For 6 months. Tom was quiet for a beat. Then he said, you know what gets me? How normal they looked in that video. Not like two people stealing time. More like a couple in their routine. That hit me harder than I expected. I nodded slowly. Like it wasn't even wrong to them. Tom looked over at me. You thinking of staying with her? The question landed like a punch, not because it offended me, but because I hadn't asked myself that yet. Not really. No, I said, and my voice cracked. No. There's no coming back from this. Good, he said. Because I'd lose a lot of respect for you if you did. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. I don't even know who I am without her, I admitted. You're the same guy you've always been, Tom said. She's the one who changed. Don't get that twisted. The wind picked up off the water, and I felt it right in my bones. I should have seen it, I muttered. She didn't want you to, he said. That's the whole point of betrayal. It hides in plain sight until it decides to bare its teeth. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking not from the cold, but from the weight of everything. The humiliation. The grief. The total appending of everything I thought I knew. I don't know how to start over, I said. You don't, Tom replied. Not right away. First you survive it. Then you start. We stayed there until the first light broke over the lake. Pink and gold, stupidly beautiful for a morning that felt like a funeral. When I finally stood up, I felt steadier. Still broken. Still exhausted. But something in me had shifted. Like that clarity Tom talked about had finally sunk its claws into me. I didn't need to figure it all out that day. I just needed to walk the next step forward. By the time I got back to the house, the sun was already up, and the leftover chaos of the night before had been swept into corners. The kind of tidy that only comes after people have seen too much and don't know what to say. I half expected Savannah to be there, pacing the hallway, waiting with that hollow apology look on her face. But she was gone. It wasn't until I saw Jenny in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a coffee mug clutched between her hands, that I knew for sure. She left about an hour ago, she said quietly. I stood in the doorway, taking it in. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and none of her things were by the door. Just silence. And the smell of burnt toast. She say anything? I asked. Jenny nodded. Tried. I didn't let her. That hit me harder than I expected. My sister, the one who used to sneak me cookies behind Mom's back and who always gave people the benefit of the doubt, had chosen a side. And she'd chosen mine. I sat down across from her, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. She left your ring on the counter, Jenny finally said, motioning toward the kitchen island. I looked over and there it was, a thin silver band sitting alone on the marble, like it had no history. I didn't touch it. Instead, I got up, grabbed a coffee, and went to the guest room. That's where I stayed for the rest of the weekend. I didn't talk much. Barely ate. Worked remotely on Monday, telling my boss I needed a couple days to handle personal matters. Which wasn't a lie. Just a painfully sanitized version of the truth. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the video. The way her hands slid over Martin's chest. The way she laughed into his neck. The same way she used to laugh into mine. I'd delete the footage, swear I would, but every time I hovered over it, something in me refused to let go. Like if I kept it, I could prove to myself it really happened. But the worst part wasn't what they did. It was how easy they looked doing it. There wasn't any guilt in that video. No hesitation. Just two people completely comfortable in what they were doing, in what they were destroying. And I kept wondering how long Savannah had been able to look me in the eye afterward. How many times she kissed me with that same mouth. How many times she had told me she loved me knowing full well where she'd just been. The house felt emptier than it ever had. Not just physically, though yeah, her closet was gutted and the bathroom felt twice as cold. But emotionally. It was like the air had shifted. No music. No perfume in the hall. Just the ghost of a life I thought we had. I tried to throw myself into work, but I'd zone out halfway through emails. I caught myself checking her Instagram more times than I'll ever admit, waiting to see if she posted something. A picture. A quote. Some cryptic line about healing or moving forward. But there was nothing. Just silence. Jenny came by once or twice a day, checking in without making it feel like she was checking in. She brought food, sat with me during lunch breaks, talked about anything but Savannah. She never said, "I told you so," even though I know part of her probably wanted to. And I loved her for that. But being alone, really alone, for the first time in years? That was the part one wasn't ready for. Even the dumb stuff hurt. Seeing her favorite mug still in the dishwasher. Finding one of her hair ties on the nightstand. Seeing a notification from the Spotify playlist we made together. It was like death by 1,000 reminders. Our life had been so intertwined, so saturated with little pieces of her, that even in her absence, she was everywhere. On Thursday, I finally got the nerve to open the closet in our bedroom. I hadn't touched it since I got back. It was half empty now, the hangers rattling lightly as if they missed her too. I stood there, staring at what was left, one of her old hoodies, a pair of boots she'd forgotten, the scarf I bought her in Santa Fe last winter. I sat on the floor and cried for the first time. Not out of anger. Not even sadness, really. Just this deep, hollow ache. The kind that sits in your chest like concrete. I wasn't just mourning Savannah. I was mourning the version of myself who used to believe I knew her. Who thought I was building a future with someone who respected me. Who trusted me. Who saw me. And now? Now I was just a man in a house full of memories that didn't feel like mine anymore. It was just past noon on a gray, freezing Saturday when Martin showed up at my door. I wasn't going to answer it at first. I figured it was a delivery or one of those church volunteers who still hadn't figured out I wasn't in the mood for salvation. But something told me to look through the peephole. And when I did, I froze. There he was. Martin. Wearing sunglasses like that could hide what he was feeling. A thick bruise was still blooming under his left eye, purple and yellow around the edges. A split lip that looked like it hadn't healed right. He stood with the posture of someone who wasn't sure if they were about to get punched again. Honestly, I was still deciding. I opened the door, just a crack. "You've got 5 seconds, I said. "I deserve that," he said. "Probably more." I didn't respond. Just stared. I need to talk to you, man, he said, pulling off the sunglasses. "Please." Against every instinct, I opened the door. He stepped inside slowly, like he half expected me to change my mind and slam it shut behind him. I stayed near the entrance, arms crossed, not offering a seat, not even pretending this was a conversation between friends. Martin looked around like he was seeing the aftermath of a war zone. Maybe he was. "I know you've got no reason to hear me out," he started. "But what Savannah did to you, she did to me too." I laughed once. Short, sharp. "Oh, we're doing that now? The mutual victim routine." "I'm not trying to shift blame," he said quickly. "I screwed up. What I did with her, there's no excuse. But you should know, she played me too." "She played you?" I repeated. "What the hell do you think she was doing with me?" He nodded, eyes dropping. "I thought I was the one. She told me she was leaving you. Said she just needed to get through the holidays, let things die down." I shook my head in disbelief. "You're really standing here trying to bond with me over the fact that my wife cheated on both of us?" "I'm saying," he said carefully, "she lied to both of us. Because 2 days after you knocked me out, I found out there's someone else. Another guy. Some dude from her gym. That got my attention." "What?" "Yeah," he said, his mouth twitching in a bitter half-smile. "His name's Jason. Tall, jacked, trainer type. She's been seeing him too. Hell, for all I know, he's been around longer than I have." I stared at him, unsure whether to believe it. Unsure if this was some Hail Mary to make himself feel less like the villain. "You think I'm lying?" he asked. "Go see for yourself. She works out at that boutique place off Lamar. He trains there. If she's not with him now, she will be. Just watch." I didn't say anything. Didn't throw him out. Just walked to the door and opened it again. "Thanks for the update," I said, voice low. "Now get the hell out." He walked out without another word. And the second the door shut behind him, I grabbed my coat. I didn't know what I was expecting when I pulled into the gym's parking lot and found a spot across the street. My heart was pounding, same as it had the night I walked into that house and found Savannah with Martin. But this time, it wasn't panic or heartbreak. It was a sick curiosity. An hour passed. I watched people come and go. Some couples. A lot of people in leggings and zip-ups, carrying water bottles and post-workout smoothies. I nearly convinced myself Martin was just trying to mess with my head. And then I saw her. Savannah walked out the front door, gym bag slung over her shoulder, hair tied back, still glowing from whatever class she'd just taken. She looked like the past week hadn't blown up everything we built. Right behind her was a guy. Easily 6 feet 3 inches, muscles for days, that obnoxious alpha walk that screamed, "Trainer." He was smiling at her. She laughed. And then she touched his arm. That little touch, quick, familiar, flirtatious, shattered something in me I didn't even know was still intact. It was the same gesture she used to do to me. At parties. At home. When she was teasing me or trying to calm me down. That same casual intimacy, like it meant nothing and everything at once. They got into separate cars, but the way they stood close, the way she looked at him, it was all I needed to see. Martin hadn't been lying. I drove home in silence. No music. No thoughts. Just this buzzing white noise in my skull like a TV left on in an empty room. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just done. She came home late, keys jangling like it was any other night. I was already sitting at the table, papers spread out between us like a final verdict. "Don't even try," I said before she opened her mouth. She looked tired, beaten by her own decisions. I asked her one question: "Did you love any of us?" "Martin. Jason." Her silence said everything. I slid the papers across to her. "Sign it." And she did. No argument, no tears. Just the sound of a pen ending everything we'd built. After she left, the house felt hollow, but honest. I could finally hear the quiet. I took the ring off, boxed up the memories, and walked room to room reclaiming space. Grief didn't come like a wave, it came like still water. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. I went for a walk that night, no destination. Just me breathing. For the first time in months, there was no pretending. No lies. Just the truth and whatever came next. And honestly, that was enough.